Okay, hello. I'm here with Mr. Ricardo Cuervo. How you doing?
Fine, fantastic. Good afternoon.
Perfect. Thank you very much for stopping by the Perfect Clarity podcast. And let's start off by telling us a little bit about this wonderful city you're in. We're here in Bogota, and this is the city where you live, correct?
Yes, I've been living in Bogota for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently both nationalities, Venezuelan and Colombian.
Okay.
Bogota is a super fun city which have many alternatives and many people living in it, or close to 9 to 10 million persons living in Bogota. You get almost everything that you would like to go. You get fine dining, you get good party and sports. Like everybody here is going on a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
They say close to 1.5 million persons go to work on a bike.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of biking routes as well. There is the mountains around. Then within 1 hour you can be in a very warm weather, nice places. So you have plenty of alternative.
Mm-hmm.
The dining has improved lately greatly.
All right.
So yeah, certainly it is multicultural as well. They get guys like you. Normally, you can meet in Colombia too. So it has everything that you can look for.
Yeah.
It can be tough too.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of traffic.
Right.
There's robberies. I mean, as every big city, you
Right.
get almost everything that you would like to get and things that you want.
It's a mix of everything, right?
Yes, it's a mix.
So up until now, I thought you were Rolo. So you're not actually a Rolo. You're from Venezuela originally?
Yes, I'm born in Caracas, Venezuela.
Mhm.
So up until I did all my school and university, my dad was born here in Bogota. So that's why I could get both nationalities
I see.
easily.
Okay.
Okay, and well, my family's been a big mix.
Hmm.
On my mother's side, my mother and my grandfather are German descent. So, eventually I can get even European nationality, German nationality too.
Hmm.
So it's a big mix.
Alright.
But it's fine. I love to be multicultural and an international person. So fine. I'm always available to get new experiences and to learn and to meet new people.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about your studies. Did you study here in Colombia, or did you do studies in
No, I did my high school or my school. I did it in Caracas with the Jesuits, which actually they have a branch here too, which is called the San Bartolome. A school here in Bogota is exactly the same as the San Ignacio. I studied my high school. Then I went to university to study chemical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So even before I graduated, I was already hired by the company I worked for later when I graduated.
Well, nice. And which company was that?
That company is called Schlumberger.
Okay.
Now it's called SLB for the acronym that they have, and it is the biggest oilfield service company in the world.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to work for them for 17 years and live in 11 different countries. So that's where I catch my English. I speak Portuguese, I speak French, and
Beautiful.
of course Spanish.
Okay. That's quite a bit of travel in a lot of languages. So did you know that you always wanted to be in commodities, or was this just kind of like something that happened after the chemical engineering degree?
I always wanted to be an oil guy.
Okay.
Even from my high school, my graduation project was about oil. Then I went to chemical engineering, and year and a half before I graduated, I went to do my project before graduation.
Mm-hmm.
I was offered the opportunity to work for this company.
Mm-hmm.
Then my graduation project from chemical engineering was on asphaltenes, which is one of the products in the oil. So I basically went into oil from very early, and I have been still now 29 years. I'm graduated. I'm still working for oil, and I still love going to a well site.
Okay. So I'm guessing, you're living in Colombia, you're working with this company. You've probably worked a lot with Ecopetrol. That's pretty much the largest company in Colombia. Do you have any dealings with them?
Yeah, usually the way the industry is set up is that you have the operating companies, or also called E&P, exploration and production companies, that, like Ecopetrol, they are the owners of the oil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they produce it, but normally they require many services for that oil production.
Right.
So those services are provided by different companies. SLB or Schlumberger being the biggest, provide many of those services. So I did provide services with Schlumberger to Ecopetrol, but then I started my own company, and I have also provided services to Ecopetrol and many different E&P companies around the world. Service companies, oilfield service companies, which is the way that we are called. We are the backbone of the industry, because the operating companies, they require specialized services that they go out and hire.
Right.
And that's what I have been doing. And it's similar service you can provide all over the world, especially if you have a particular knowledge, you are looked for as a specialist or as an expert, and you go around to provide that service. And I have had the chance to work in Africa, in America, offshore, onshore, jungle, desert.
Wow.
So it's been a fun career, yes.
Okay. So if you're working offshore, onshore, and in the jungles, I'm guessing it could be a little bit of a dangerous business to be in. Have you?
Oh, certainly the oil, especially the upstream side of the business, have a lot of risk and a lot of dangers. You have dangers like coming from the well in itself and from the activity, because you deal with a lot of heavy equipment. When you're on a rig, you have tons of equipment and pipe and everything hanging all over your head, then going down. You deal with pressure, you deal with H2S and CO2, which are dangerous gases.
Wow.
You deal with the fact that you go on a chopper to offshore rigs or to the jungle. You may take a boat, risky seas. There's so many. Even there's the rebels, like if you go to Colombia to particular sites, you might run into certain trouble. So yeah, it is a dangerous business, but that's the fun of it. I love it.
Well, that's good to hear. So yeah, I was gonna reach that question, because anytime you're working in Colombia and you're dealing with natural resources, there's going to be that element of the rebels and the various armed organized groups that are out there. Have you had any specific encounters or any run-ins with these guys?
Well, the closest is I was in Puerto Asís, which is in Putumayo department, down south of Colombia, heading to the well site. And the driver got lost in a deviation, and there was a motorcycle with a kind of a bodyguard following us. But actually he wasn't following us. He went ahead, and this guy missed the deviation, took the left instead of the right, and all of a sudden you see this rebel camp with a flag and everything. Luckily, at that time there wasn't a major. They weren't really as active as they may be today, because the peace deal was just done.
All right. So you've been to, obviously worked in Africa, so I'm guessing there's a lot of dangers that you may have faced over there, outside the cities, the main cities and whatnot. Dealing with oil extraction.
No, really the biggest. Usually the companies, they take a lot of care of you. They warn you what things you can do and you cannot do. Even the major risk is when you probably go out for a beer or you end up in the wrong place. But besides that, when you're actually working, the companies take a lot of care of you.
Okay.
And you have to follow, like the advice and everything. The biggest hit I got was when the plane was going to leave Gabon. Some police came into the plane and took my passport, and then they asked for money to get the passport back so we can fly. So that was, tricky part. So I ended up having to collect that money later on from the company. But those are kind of things that you face when you're in the industry, and that is a big part of the fun of working for oil all over, right? I was in the Middle East, so I worked in Kuwait, I worked in UAE. So, and that is fun. In Libya, I lived in Libya for 3 years when there was Gaddafi, and I had the chance to, I was living in Tripoli, and Tripoli was fun, it was just opened up after they were raising the sanctions.
Right.
Tripoli is at the Mediterranean Sea, just on the wrong side of the Mediterranean Sea. So It is a fun place, and yeah, I used to have trips to the desert, and there were rebels in Algeria. I went to Algeria right after, like a year after they killed some people from my own company.
Oh wow!
At the well site.
And you still went
happened. Yeah, still. Well, actually, it was kind of tricky because they didn't told us that happened. When we were there, we found out what happened.
You found that after the fact.
Yeah, but nothing happened to us. We were in the base, and when we were going to the well site, the army was going with us, and really nothing happened.
Yeah, it does sound like there's a lot of dangers in that business. So when we talk about natural gas extraction or oil extraction, usually there's a lot of companies are accused of looking the other way when the poor people are moved off their lands for extraction purposes and projects that are occurring. Have you actually had any encounters with that, or like what would you say? Is that a wrong perception of the industry?
Yeah, that's a reputation, but actually that has changed a lot in countries, and I can talk about Colombia in particular. There are millions of dollars are going to the community, and companies are very aware of that situation, and they have even departments for social work and interacting with the communities where they're extracting the oil or the gas.
Okay.
In 2021, I had the chance to take care of a project in La Guajira, and we're right in the middle of the tribe land, and we had Guajiros from that land working in our rig, like some of them were cleaning, and they were nice, super nice, and I remember just going out for a job, and they were selling their bags, these Guajiro bags they make and everything. So it was pretty much under control. We lived with them for almost 3 months, and they were nice. I mean, yeah, they demand some stuff. Right. I don't know, food, water, you help them with a water well, or sometimes it's money to improve for the community, but it is normal, and I think the oil has taken a lot of resources out of the earth, on their earth, and we have to improve their way of life.
Right. All right. So you're actually going out there, you're living with the people. Would that be considered upstream or downstream? So essentially, maybe you can explain for those who don't know the difference between upstream and downstream production and where you fit in all that.
Okay, fantastic. First, there is three. The oil industry is divided in three steps, really. It's the upstream, which is the well site. Is actually when you take the oil or the gas out of the earth into the surface. Then you need to transport the oil or the gas, even the water, to either to export it, to sell it to other countries, or to send it to refineries. So that transportation, whether it be on trucks or it be on a pipeline, oil or gas pipeline, that is called midstream. So again, upstream will be oil from the earth all the way up to tanks. Then you collect that with trucks or with pipe and ship it to the port to be on a boat and then sell to other countries, or to the refineries where they'll be refined in their oil products like gasoline, diesel, naphtha. Then you can go into petrochemical facilities to manufacture plastics. You can do paints, but all of that is downstream business. So downstream doesn't produce anything; it processes whatever you have produced upstream.
Okay.
I hope that is clear.
That's pretty clear to me. So, what do you think about the new president, Mr. Pedro? His tone towards the gas industry, or so natural gas and the oil industry, and I know it's changed a little bit from the previous administration.
Well, I consider myself a technical guy. I'm pretty much into the oil production, oil optimization, repair. So I tried not to run into politics. But my personal view is there has been a lot of noise about the industry. Sometimes the comments or their ideas are not based on fact. And there is a lot of confusion out there because of that.
Okay.
Not all of the ideas are wrong. I think many of his ideas are correct, but certainly the comments have not helped the investment and have not helped the industry per se.
So would you say that since Pedro's election and the new administration, there has been a chilling effect in the oil industry and investments? And
Yeah, people are concerned. It's not that it has stopped.
okay,
They're just concerned. And also, there's been two other things that he has been changing the management for the main oil company in Colombia, Ecopetrol, which always produces changes, and then they're focusing a lot into energy transformation
okay,
or energy transition, which is basically go more into renewables.
right.
So, but the funny bit is that to go into renewables, to spend all the money that's required to go into solar energy or wind energy or even hydroelectric, you require the oil revenues to turn to the renewables.
Right. So Colombia is pretty heavily reliant on the Petrocontrol,
Ecopetrol, yeah.
Ecopetrol, and the revenue that it generates, correct? Because this is a government-run business.
Yeah, it's a public-private company, but certainly the biggest revenue maker by far is Ecopetrol.
I see. Okay. So would you say, is it a fair statement to say that being in the oil business as an oil man is a dying breed because the renewables are going to come and eat your lunch, or?
That's a very good question, and I always hate that question. That is the truth. I wouldn't say it's a dying breed because you're gonna require oil for 100 years, no doubt. You are looking for alternatives. You're starting to move to other energy sources. But the fact is that electricity and cars are like 30% of the uses for oil. So you still have another bunch of applications and requirements. So oil is still gonna be there. The industry has been changing for sure. The other thing is that it's cyclical, right? The business cycle. The oil goes up and down based on demand and offer. It is about 100 million barrels a day that are consumed of oil, and the production is close to 97, 95 million barrels a day. So as long as there is a gap in between the consumption and the production, certainly the oil price is gonna be high. Currently at $75 to $80 a barrel is a good price for everybody. It's good for the producers, it's good for the consumers because it's not that high.
Right.
But there are geopolitical factors and other factors that affect this price.
Right. So would you say that lithium batteries and solar panels, they're not necessarily a viable alternative? You're not feeling threatened by this onslaught of the proliferation of this stuff?
No, for sure I don't feel threatened by the proliferation of the solar energy, but there's a lot of misconceptions about it. First of all, the solar panels to be produced, they're produced from sand, and to heat them up very high to 1500 degrees centigrade to be turned then into panels. So that is consuming the combustible, the gasoline or the diesel that is produced by the oil. And the lithium batteries, remember, any kind of renewable energy, you need to store it. Because there is night, so at night the panels are not going to be producing electricity. There is the wind may not blow all the time, so you will not produce electricity all the time. So you need the lithium batteries. You need batteries. Period.
You need them.
Okay, so currently the best technology that exists is the lithium-ion ones.
Right.
So lithium has no recycling. You cannot do anything with lithium. When lithium gets in contact with water, it explodes. So there are certain things that you need to take care of on this renewable energy source and this renewable matrix that is being created.
Okay.
So the other thing that you need to consider is, okay, batteries are evolving like everything else into new technologies that are maybe replacing the lithium ion currently being used, but they are not popular, they are not economical ones.
Right.
Yes, there's the other consideration is the hydrogen, right? There's a lot of fuss about hydrogen and how it's going to be generated to basically power up cars and power up planes and all the other things. Obtaining hydrogen comes from electrolysis. basically is using an electricity source
Mm-hmm.
to put into water to separate the hydrogen and the oxygen
Okay.
and use that. That's how the hydrogen is produced.
Mm-hmm.
Based on how the electricity source is generating the electricity, say solar panels or renewable energy or diesel or whatever, then that be changing the color of the hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, black hydrogen, based on the source of the energy that is required to generate the hydrogen atoms.
I see.
It is moving, but still there are not many cars, or myself, I'd be reluctant to ride a car with a 300 psi hydrogen tank on below my seat. Right?
Yeah.
So there are certain considerations
Yeah.
that you need to have.
Yeah, I can definitely see the concern that would be entailed with that. So let's shift a little bit and ask, how has the interest rates environment affected the oil business?
Well, as any business, and particularly the oil is based on investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And very high investments. So the interest rates, they affect the oil business per se, but normally the investors, they come into the business and they have a 3 to 5 years strategy,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a 10-year strategy. So it is not a thing that, it will stop the business.
Mm-hmm.
It just make it harder or simpler based on goes up or down the interest rates. They are only one part of the whole investment strategy. The investors, they go into 3 to 5 years investment. So the interest rates tend to change fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes make it more expensive to invest, but there's only one consideration out of the whole thing on your investment strategy, and the oil is usually very good, very profitable business when you do properly and when you take care of your expenses, and the investors are usually having very good recuperation of their funds.
Okay. So do you see a lot of investment into the carbon capture new technologies that are coming out? Or is that just kind of pie in the sky, not realistic stuff? Because I'm not quite sure.
It is a trend in the industry. Actually, now a lot of the investors, they are looking at sustainability. Right? And a big part of the sustainability, the ESG strategy, it be the carbon capture and reducing emissions, right? Focus on emissions. Many companies are replacing, for example, generators that are using diesel for solar panels in order to reduce their carbon emissions to the atmosphere. And the carbon capture in itself is, you have three main ways to capture the carbon. One would be the trees, right? But that requires big extension or big areas with trees in order to capture enough of the carbon being emitted. And the biggest way to basically take off carbon from the atmosphere would be to put it down on the reservoirs. On the same old reservoirs that may be empty, you use them to store carbon. And the carbon captures technologies currently, there's one called DAU, direct air, or DAC, direct air capture, which is basically using big fans and a chemical process in order to absorb and separate the CO2 from the atmosphere and store it into particular tanks, or then go into reservoirs to store big amounts of carbon in order to meet the Paris Agreement from 2017, which is to reduce 45% by 2030 and avoid the increase on temperature for 2 degrees.
I see. So what do you think about the United Nations net zero by 2030? Sorry, do you think that's a reasonable?
Many companies are focusing on that. Net zero implies, or net zero means that you capture as much as you emit, or you don't emit anything in order to be zero. So net zero is that your emissions are compensated by the capture elimination of CO2. Okay, so that's how you work. The UN says 45% by 2030, zero by 2050. So many companies today are working on investment in technologies in order to reduce or eliminate their emissions to meet the UN requirement.
All right. So do you feel that it's actually a reasonable target?
For 2030, I see it very hard because we are just 6, 7 years away, and I don't think it's gonna be met because there's still, if it's true that there are countries and companies in those countries that are focusing on that, many other companies are either not focusing or don't have enough resources to invest into net zero in order to capture or reduce their CO emissions.
I see. All right. So where would you say the future of the oil industry is? Right now, I'm hearing a lot about Namibia and Guyana as being the new hotspots. Is this what you see?
Yeah, I agree. Guyana has been a very good discovery by ExxonMobil.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge reservoir or several reservoirs that coming from the Orinoco Delta.
Okay.
And remember that zone is under dispute with Venezuela, and I do agree that that area should be basically split with Venezuela properly.
I see.
Then on the other hand, Namibia is a very good, apparently they have discovered a huge reservoir and a bunch of resources are gonna head down there.
Okay.
Remember, as I mentioned, the Africa and America were joined back in geological time, and when they were split with the ocean in the middle, there is some mirror areas like Brazil and Angola offshore, and now Namibia they're saying with Argentina, so Argentina is gonna do a big offshore well, already started or is about to start. So yeah, hopefully they have good discoveries. And the future, I mean, it's always fun because sometimes the oil, you have reservoirs below reservoirs, you have new discoveries, you have people looking at the reservoirs or the production in a different way. So things are always happening, and the key to it is the resources that you require to basically invest and obtain better oil.
Perfect.
Out.
Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about Latina Energy. This is your company, correct?
Correct.
So could you tell us a little bit about that and what you focus on doing right now?
Yeah, Latina Energy is my own entrepreneurship. It's basically focused on bringing new technologies to America or to South America that are not normally available. I had downhole video for more than 10 years and it was very effective, and I got to work in different countries because that technology wasn't available. Also, it is based on my knowledge of well testing, production optimization, the first oil out facilities, and lately I have been working a lot on consultation as well for companies require the knowledge or even reviewing new reservoirs or potential investments into the region, say Colombia, say Mexico, Venezuela as well, that is starting to lift up.
Okay. So how long have you been operating this company now?
12 years.
All right. And so would you say that the consultation that you're doing with a certain oil investing has been profitable, or is it a good business? You see
that's a funny bit. One of the things I learned with blood on entrepreneurship is cash flow.
Right.
So yeah, people do require the services, and people do look for good experience. The thing is, handling a company in countries in South America is hard because sometimes you don't get the payments on time.
Mm-hmm.
You start to struggle. You have employees that you need to pay certainly monthly.
Right.
So you gotta juggle with a lot of balls at the same time, and but whenever you hit good contracts, yeah, certainly can be really profitable and make you grow.
Beautiful. So what would you say to somebody interested in starting a career or interested in working in the industry? What would you tell them?
Very, very good question. I'm always a big fan of the industry, and I have had experiences and have gone to countries that I never ever planned in my life or in any dream. So flying on a chopper offshore, riding a boat at the high seas, hanging from a crane to go into the rig, spending nights without sleep.
Okay.
Has been really a lot of fun. Being in the middle of a Guajira with a bunch of Guajiros walking around the rig. I don't know. I'm full of experiences. right? Say going into the desert, into the Sahara Desert, or going to UAE to Abu Dhabi, and then either offshore to these islands they have for production, or going into the desert at 54 degrees C it is experience.
Okay.
And makes your life fun, and there are experiences that you never planned you even gonna have. And certainly you need to try it, because that's what life is for, or life is about.
All right. So there's never a dull day when working within the oil industry. That's good to hear. All right. So if somebody, say, was coming to Colombia and they were interested in reaching out to you because they had some questions, or they wanted some contacts in the industry, how do we go about finding you?
Well, there is 3 or 4 main ways, especially social network. I'm in LinkedIn, that you can reach to me in my LinkedIn connection.
Perfect.
I'm on Instagram, or you can please share my mobile, whoever asked a question. And I have email as well, that we can always set up an interview, or just a simple drink of coffee, which is very good in Colombia. And sweets, and have a great fun. One of these sunny days are happening in Bogota lately.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, I'd like to thank you very much for stopping by the Perfect Clarity podcast. I'm going to definitely ensure that there's a link below to your profiles, and to your LinkedIn, and to your Instagram, so that anybody interested in coming to Colombia can reach out to you and have that coffee that you are so famous for here.
Please go ahead. It'd be my pleasure to show all the good things that we have.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, thank you very much for stopping by the Perfect Clarity podcast. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Maurice. Good afternoon.
Okay.